Commander Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of his ship. The UES Vengeance was the newest and strongest ship in the human fleet. It was big, powerful, and ready for anything. Jake had been its captain for 2 years now. He was proud of his ship and his crew. The bridge was quiet that day. The stars outside looked peaceful. Jake was reading reports when something changed. A loud beeping sound filled the air. Lieutenant Amy Foster jumped up from her station. She was the person who handled all the messages that came to the ship. "Sir, we're getting a distress signal," Amy said. Her voice was worried. "It's coming from the Kepler system. That's far from here, and it's a dangerous place." Jake walked over to Amy's station. The Kepler system was known for being hard to travel through. The stars there were unstable. The gravity was all wrong. Most ships stayed away from there because it was too risky. "Can you understand the message?" Jake asked. Amy worked fast on her computer. Her fingers moved quickly across the glowing buttons. The message was in an alien language. It took time to translate it. When she finally got it working, everyone on the bridge could hear the voice. The voice sounded scared and tired. It spoke in a high musical tone. "This is Captain Zeph 99 of the Valorian research vessel Harmony's Edge. We are under attack by the Void Hunters. Our shields are failing. We have civilian scientists aboard, including younglings. Please, any civilization capable of faster-than-light travel, we need immediate assistance. We cannot escape. They are jamming our jump drives." Jake felt his blood run cold. The Void Hunters were the worst kind of criminals in space. They were pirates who attacked peaceful ships. They killed people and sold survivors as slaves. They had been terrorizing the outer systems for many years. Dr. Lisa Park was also on the bridge. She was the ship's expert on alien life forms. When she heard the message, her face went pale. "Commander, the Valorians are a peaceful species. They don't have weapons. They don't fight. They're scientists and doctors. They help other species with medicine and knowledge." Jake had heard of the Valorians before. They were known throughout the galaxy for being kind and smart. They had never hurt anyone. They believed that violence was wrong. If the Void Hunters were attacking them, it meant they were attacking innocent people. "How far away are they?" Jake asked. Amy checked her instruments. 3 days at maximum speed, sir. But the Kepler system is very dangerous. We could lose ships trying to get there." Jake looked around the bridge. His crew was waiting for his decision. He could see the worry in their eyes. They all knew what the Void Hunters were like. They also knew that going to the Kepler system was risky. But Jake also knew something else. He was human. Humans didn't leave innocent people to die if they could help it. It didn't matter if those people were aliens. It didn't matter if it was dangerous. The right thing to do was to help. "All hands battle stations," Jake said in a strong voice. "Set course for the Kepler system. Maximum speed. Signal the fleet. We're going to war." The bridge came alive with activity. Crew members ran to their stations. Lights changed from normal, white to red. The ship's engines began to roar louder as they prepared for the long journey. Lieutenant Commander Dan Rogers was the ship's weapons officer. He looked at Jake with concern. "Sir, we don't know how many Void Hunter ships are there. We might be flying into a trap." Jake nodded. He understood the risk. "Then we better bring friends. Amy, send a message to all human ships within 1 day's travel. Tell them what's happening. Tell them we need help." Amy's fingers flew over her. Controls. She sent the emergency message to every human ship in the area. The message was simple but clear. Innocent people were in danger, and humans were going to help them. Dr. Park walked up to Jake. "Commander, the Valorians mentioned younglings. Those are their children. The Void Hunters don't just kill adults. They take children and sell them as slaves. Jake's jaw tightened. He had a daughter back on Earth. The thought of children being hurt by monsters like the Void Hunters made him angry. Then we better hurry. The U's vengeance turned toward the Kepler system. Its engines burned bright in the darkness of space. Behind them, other human ships were changing course too. They had heard the call for help, and they were coming. In the next few hours, 12 human ships joined the rescue mission. There were destroyers, cruisers, and the mighty UE's vengeance leading them all. It wasn't the biggest fleet in human history, but it was enough. It had to be enough. As they traveled through space, Jake thought about what they were going to face. The Void Hunters were experienced fighters. They had fast ships and powerful weapons. They knew how to kill and how to run away when things got bad, but they had never fought humans before. Humans were different from other species in the galaxy. Earth was a dangerous world. It had storms, earthquakes, wild animals, and diseases. Humans had to be tough to survive on such a world. They had to be smart and brave. Other species called humans Deathworlders because they came from such a harsh planet. Most aliens thought this was an insult, but humans wore it like a badge of honor. It meant they were survivors. It meant they were fighters. The Void Hunters were about to learn what happened when you threatened innocent people in front of humans. They were about to learn that some fights were worth dying for. They were about to meet the Deathworlders of Earth, and nothing would ever be the same. The human fleet came out of hyperspace, like ghosts appearing from nowhere. One moment there was empty space, and the next moment 12 human warships were floating near the edge of the Kepler system. Commander Jake Martinez looked at the view screen and felt his heart sink. The Kepler system was even worse than he had imagined. Strange lights flashed between the stars. The gravity was pulling in different directions. Space itself seemed twisted and angry. It was no wonder that most ships stayed away from this place. Captain Tony Blake was the commander of the destroyer U.E.'s Reaper. His ship was smaller than the Vengeance, but it was fast and deadly. Tony had been Jake's friend for many years. His voice came through the communication system. "Jake, I see them," Tony said. "The Valorian ship is about 5 million kilometers from here. It looks bad." Jake turned to his crew. "Put the Valorian ship on screen." The main screen showed a sad sight. The Harmony's Edge was a beautiful ship, or it had been once. It was shaped like a flower, with curved walls that glowed with soft light. But now the light was dim and flickering. Parts of the ship were broken. It was clearly dying. Around the Valorian ship, 7 Void Hunter vessels circled like sharks around a wounded fish. The Void Hunter ships were ugly and mean-looking. They were built for speed and destruction. They had sharp edges and dark metal. They looked like the monsters who flew them. Ensign Kate Sullivan was working at the sensor station. She was young, but she was very good at her job. "Sir, I'm reading life signs on the Valorian ship. They're still alive, but not for long. The Void Hunters are getting ready to board them." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. The Void Hunters weren't just going to kill the Valorians quickly. They were going to take them alive. They would separate the adults from the children. They would sell them as slaves to the highest bidder. "Not on my watch," Jake said quietly. Lieutenant Commander Dan Rogers looked at the numbers on his screen. "Sir, we have 12 ships. They have 7. We outnumber them, but their ships are faster than ours." Jake smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had found his prey. "Then we don't give them a chance to run. Tony, are you ready for some real combat?" Tony's voice came back, strong and confident. "I've been ready my whole life, Jake. What's the plan?" Jake looked at the tactical display. The Void Hunters were arranged in a loose circle around the Valorian ship. They felt safe because they had never been attacked before. Pirates like them were used to easy targets. They picked on the weak and ran from the strong, but they had never faced humans before. They didn't know that humans were different. They didn't know that humans would fight harder when innocent people were in danger. They didn't know that humans never gave up. "Listen up, all ships," Jake said into the fleet communication system. "We're going to hit them fast and hard. No warnings, no mercy. These monsters have been terrorizing innocent people for too long. Today, they learn what happens when they mess with the wrong species." The human fleet split into 3 groups. Tony Blake led 4 destroyers around to the left side of the enemy formation. Captain Lucy Chun took 3 cruisers to the right. Jake kept the Vengeance and 4 other ships in the center. The Void Hunters saw the human ships coming, but they didn't understand the danger. They had fought many species before. Most aliens were careful in battle. They tried to avoid getting hurt. They would retreat if things got too dangerous. Captain Creshmore was the leader of the Void Hunter force. He was old and experienced. He had been raiding peaceful ships for over 100 years. When he saw the human ships approaching, he laughed. "Mammals," he said to his crew. "They think they can frighten us. Show them what real warriors look like." The Void Hunter ships turned to face the humans. Their weapons powered up. Creshmore expected the humans to slow down, to be careful, to try to negotiate. He was wrong. The human ships didn't slow down. They didn't try to talk. They came straight at the Void Hunters with their weapons firing. The first shots lit up the darkness of space like lightning. "All weapons, fire at will," Jake commanded. The U.E.'s Vengeance opened fire with everything it had. Plasma cannons sent streams of superhot energy toward the enemy ships. Missile launchers fired dozens of rockets. The ship's main gun, a massive railgun, shot metal slugs at incredible speed. The Void Hunters were surprised by the ferocity of the attack. They had expected a careful battle, not this wild charge. 2 of their ships were badly damaged in the first few seconds of fighting. Captain Tony Blake pushed his destroyer harder than it had ever been pushed before. The U.E.'s Reaper danced through space, dodging enemy fire while shooting back. Tony had grown up on a farm on Earth. He knew how to work hard and how to fight when he had to. "This is for every innocent person you've hurt," Tony said as his ship's weapons found their target. One of the Void Hunter ships exploded in a ball of fire. The crew of the Reaper cheered, but they didn't stop fighting. There were still 6 enemy ships left. Captain Lucy Chun was leading the cruiser attack on the right side. Her ship, the U.E.'s Warrior, was built for this kind of fighting. It had thick armor and powerful weapons. Lucy had been in the military for 15 years. She had never lost a battle. "Stay close to me," she told her group. "We're going to punch through their line and rescue those Valorians." The human ships worked together like they had trained for this moment their whole lives. They covered each other. When one ship was in trouble, another would help. When the enemy tried to run, the humans were there to stop them. The Void Hunters were confused and scared. They had never faced an enemy like this. The humans fought with a combination of skill and fury that was terrifying. Even when their ships were damaged, the humans kept fighting. War Captain Creshmore watched his ships getting destroyed and felt fear for the first time in many years. "What kind of species are these?" he asked his crew. "They fight like demons." But the humans weren't demons. They were just people who believed in protecting the innocent. They were willing to risk their lives for strangers because it was the right thing to do. The battle raged for hours. The space around the Valorian ship was filled with fire and explosions. 3 Void Hunter ships were destroyed. 2 more were badly damaged. The humans had lost 1 destroyer, but they were winning. Inside the Valorian ship, Captain Zeph-99 and his crew watched the battle with amazement. They had never seen anything like it. The humans were fighting with incredible bravery, too. Save people they had never met. "They're risking their lives for us," Zeph 99 said to his crew. "These humans are truly remarkable." The tide of battle was turning. The Void Hunters were losing, and they knew it. But they still had one advantage. They were faster than the human ships. If they could break away from the battle, they might be able to escape. War Captain Creshmore made a desperate decision. "All ships, prepare to retreat. We'll come back with reinforcements." But Commander Jake Martinez had expected this. He had been watching the battle carefully. He knew that pirates like the Void Hunters would try to run when things got bad. "Not today," Jake said. "Amy, signal Captain Chun. It's time to spring our trap." The trap was perfect. While the Void Hunters had been focused on the main battle, Captain Lucy Chun had quietly moved her cruisers to block the most likely escape route. When War Captain Creshmore tried to retreat, he found human ships waiting. For him. "Surprise," Lucy said as her ships opened fire. The UES Warrior's guns lit up the darkness. The heavy cruiser's weapons were designed to destroy large ships, and they did their job well. The lead Void Hunter ship exploded before it could even return fire, but the real surprise was yet to come. War Captain Creshmore, desperate to escape, made a terrible mistake. He ordered his remaining ships to use the Valorian vessel as a shield. The damaged research ship was pushed between the Void Hunters and the human fleet. "Coward," Commander Jake Martinez said when he saw what was happening. "He's using innocent people as human shields." Dr. Lisa Park looked at the tactical display with horror. "Sir, if we fire on the Void Hunter ships now, we might hit the Valorians." "There are children on that ship." Jake stared at the screen. The Valorian ship was badly damaged and couldn't move. The Void Hunters were hiding behind it like the cowards they were. Any other species would have been stuck. They would have had to let the pirates escape rather than risk hurting innocent people. But humans were different. They had grown up on a world where impossible situations happened every day. They had learned to find solutions when there seemed to be none. They had learned to take risks that other species would never consider. "Tony, are you seeing this?" Jake asked over the communication system. Captain Tony Blake's voice came back steady and calm. "I see it, Jake. You're thinking what I'm thinking, aren't you? The precision strike. Can you do it?" Tony looked at his weapons officer, Lieutenant Sam Miller. Sam had been the best shot in the academy. He had grown up hunting in the mountains of Colorado. He knew how to hit small targets from far away. "It's a 1-in-a-million shot," Sam said. "If I miss by even a little bit, I'll hit the Valorian ship." "Then don't miss," Tony said simply. What happened next would be talked about in military schools for the next 100 years. The U-East Reaper, a small destroyer, began to move closer to the Void Hunter flagship. At the same time, the U-East Vengeance positioned itself for a coordinated strike. The plan was insane. Both ships would fire at exactly the same time. The Reaper would target the Void Hunter ship's engines. The Vengeance would aim for the command center. They would have to thread their shots through a gap that was only a few meters wide. War Captain Creshmore watched the human ships getting closer. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. "They wouldn't dare," he said to his crew. "They won't risk hitting the Valorians." But he was wrong. Humans would risk everything to save innocent people. That was what made them different from every other species in the galaxy. Ensign Mike Thompson was piloting the UES Reaper. He was young, only 22 years old, but he was the best pilot in the fleet. He had learned to fly in the hurricane storms of Earth's ocean. Compared to that, flying through space combat was easy. "Approaching firing position," Mike reported. 30 seconds to target. The Void Hunter ships opened fire on the Reaper. Energy beams and missiles filled the space around the small destroyer. But Mike flew through it all like he was dancing. He twisted and turned, avoiding the attacks while staying on course. 10 seconds, Mike said. On the Vengeance, Lieutenant Commander Dan Rogers was preparing the main gun. He had calculated the angle a dozen times. The shot had to be perfect. There was no room for error. 5 seconds, Dan said. 4, 3, 2, fire. Both ships fired at exactly the same moment. The Reaper's weapons hit the Void Hunter flagship's engines, destroying them completely. The Vengeance's main gun punched through the command center, killing War Captain Creshmore instantly. The shots were so precise that they passed within centimeters of the Valorian ship without touching it. It was the most accurate combat shooting in galactic history. The Void Hunter flagship began to drift, powerless and leaderless. The remaining enemy ships, seeing their leader dead and their cause lost, tried to scatter in different directions, but the humans were ready for them. Captain Lucy Chun had positioned her ships to catch the fleeing pirates. One by one, the remaining Void Hunter vessels were hunted down and destroyed. "This is for every innocent life you've taken," Lucy said as her weapons finished off the last. Enemy ship. The battle was over. The space around the Valorian ship was filled with the wreckage of the Void Hunter fleet. Not a single enemy ship had escaped. Inside the Valorian research vessel, Captain Zeph 99 could hardly believe what had happened. The humans had not only saved them, but they had done it with a level of skill and courage that seemed impossible. They risked their own lives to save us, Zeph 99 said to his crew, and they did it for strangers. I have never heard of such a thing. Commander Jake Martinez led a team of human soldiers onto the Valorian ship. What they found inside made their blood boil. The Void Hunters had been preparing to separate the adult Valorians from their children. They had been getting ready to sell them all as slaves. Dr. Lisa Park immediately began treating the wounded Valorians. Her medical team worked frantically to save lives. The Valorians were badly hurt, but they were alive. That was what mattered. Thank you, Captain Zeph 99 said to Jake through a translation device. Your species has shown us something we thought was impossible. You fight with the fury of ancient gods, yet you show mercy to the weak. Jake looked at the injured Valorians, at the frightened children, at the peaceful scientists who had never hurt anyone. We protect those who cannot protect themselves, he said. It's what we do. But even as the humans celebrated their victory, Lieutenant Amy Foster was picking up troubling signals. Her face went pale as she listened to the enemy communications. Sir, she said to Jake, the Void Hunters weren't working alone. They were part of something bigger, much bigger. Jake felt his blood run cold. What do you mean? Amy played the intercepted message. It was in the harsh language of the Void Hunters. The translation was terrifying. Main Fleet, this is War Captain Creshmore. We have encountered unexpected resistance. The mammals called humans have powerful ships and strange tactics, requesting immediate reinforcements for the Valorian system strike. Jake stared at the message. The Valorian system. That was the Valorian homeworld. The planet where billions of peaceful aliens lived. The planet that had no defenses, no weapons, no way to protect itself. How many ships are in their main fleet? Jake asked. Amy checked her instruments. The answer made everyone on the bridge go silent. 200 ships, sir. They're already on their way to the Valorian homeworld. They'll be there in less than a week. Jake looked at his small fleet of 12 ships. They had just barely defeated 7 enemy vessels. Now they were facing 200. Dr. Park approached him quietly. Commander, the Valorians are pacifists. They don't have a military. They don't have weapons. If we don't stop this invasion fleet. Then we stop them, Jake said with determination. Amy, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we need the entire Third Fleet. Tell them we're going to war. The celebration was over. The real battle was just beginning. The journey to the Valorian homeworld took 3 days. During that time, the human fleet grew from 12 ships to 57. Earth Command had responded to Jake's call for help by sending the entire Third Fleet. Admiral Frank Cooper, a veteran of many space battles, took command of the combined force. The UES Defiant was Admiral Cooper's flagship. It was a massive battlecruiser, over a kilometer long. It had enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But even Frank Cooper, who had never lost a battle, was worried about the odds they were facing. 57 ships against 200, Colonel Sandy Rivers said. She was Frank's chief of staff, a smart woman who had helped him plan many victories. The math doesn't look good, sir. Frank looked at the tactical display. The Void Hunter fleet was already approaching the Valorian system. They would arrive in less than 24 hours. The human fleet was still 6 hours away. Then we changed the rules, Frank said. We're not fighting a traditional space battle. We're fighting a war to save innocent lives. During the journey, the humans had learned more about the Valorian homeworld. It was a beautiful planet covered in crystal cities and floating gardens. The Valorians had built their civilization around art, science, and healing. They had never developed weapons because they had never needed them. Dr. Lisa Park had been working with the rescued Valorians to understand their culture better. What she learned made the human mission even more urgent. Admiral, she reported, the Valorians have been sending medical aid to dozens of species throughout the galaxy. They've saved millions of lives with their healing technology. If the Void Hunters destroy their world, the galaxy will lose one of its greatest treasures. Frank nodded grimly. Then we make sure that doesn't happen. The human fleet arrived at the Valorian system to find chaos. The Void Hunter Armada had already begun their attack. The 200 enemy ships were arranged in a massive formation, moving toward the helpless planet like a swarm of deadly insects. Captain Tony Blake, now commanding the new destroyer Hughes Avenger, was the first to spot the enemy. Sir, they're using a standard invasion formation. They're not expecting any resistance. That was the Void Hunters' first mistake. They had terrorized peaceful species for so long that they had forgotten what real war looked like. They had arranged their ships for maximum intimidation, not for combat efficiency. Admiral Cooper saw the opportunity immediately. All ships, this is Admiral Cooper. We're going to hit them from 3 directions at once. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every innocent person on that planet. The human fleet split into 3 attack groups. Jake Martinez, now promoted to Commodore, led the first group straight at the center of the enemy formation. Captain Lucy Chun took the second group around the left flank. Tony Blake led the third group in a wide circle to attack from behind. The Valorians on the planet below watched in amazement as the small human fleet charged toward the massive enemy armada. They had never seen such courage. They had never imagined that anyone would risk their lives to save strangers. They're really going to fight for us, Captain Zeph-99 said from the planet's surface. He had been evacuated from his damaged ship and was now helping to coordinate the defense of his homeworld. 57 ships against 200. They must know it's impossible. But the humans didn't care about impossible. They cared about doing what was right. The battle began at dawn on the Valorian homeworld. The human ships opened fire on the Void Hunter fleet with everything they had. Plasma cannons, missile launchers, and railguns filled space with deadly light. The Void Hunters were caught completely off guard. They had expected to face a defenseless planet, not a fleet of determined human warriors. Their loose formation began to collapse as ships tried to maneuver for combat. War Prince Theknau was the commander of the Void Hunter Armada. He was even more brutal than the late War Captain Crushmore. When he saw the human ships attacking, he was furious. "Mammals," he screamed. "How dare they interfere with our conquest? All ships destroy them. But the humans had learned from their previous battle. They didn't fight like other species. They didn't try to preserve their ships or minimize their losses. They fought like their lives depended on it, because the lives of innocent people did depend on it. Commodore Jake Martinez led his group straight into the heart of the enemy formation. The U.S. Vengeance traded shots with ships twice its size, but Jake's crew never wavered. They had come too far to give up now. "This is for the Valorian children," Jake said as his main gun destroyed an enemy cruiser. Captain Lucy Chun's group hit the Void Hunter fleet from the side like a hammer blow. The U.S. Warrior and her sister ships punched through the enemy line, leaving destruction in their wake. But the most spectacular attack came from Tony Blake's group. The destroyers had circled around behind the enemy fleet and now attacked from the rear. The Void Hunters found themselves surrounded and under fire from all directions. "Surprise," Tony said as his weapons found their targets. The battle raged for hours. The space around the Valorian planet became a graveyard with destroyed ships. The humans were taking heavy losses, but they were giving as good as they got. Then something unexpected happened. Ships from other species began to arrive. The Valorians had sent out calls for help throughout the galaxy. Species that had been terrorized by the Void Hunters for decades had finally found the courage to fight back. The Centauri Republic sent a squadron of fast attack ships. The Andromedan Collective contributed their heavy cruisers. Even the mysterious Quantum Hierarchs, who rarely left their home system, sent ships to help. "This is Captain Veltar of the Centauri Republic," came a voice over the communication system. "We stand with the humans. We stand with the innocent." The tide of battle began to turn. The Void Hunters found themselves outnumbered and outfought. Their ships were being destroyed faster than they could replace them. But War Prince Vecnal had one last desperate plan. If he couldn't conquer the Valorian planet, he would destroy it. He ordered his massive flagship, the Endless Hunger, to break away from the main battle and head straight for the planet's surface. "If we can't have this world, no one can," he declared. The Endless Hunger was a monster of a ship, bigger than any human vessel. It had enough firepower to turn a planet into rubble. As it headed toward the Valorian homeworld, millions of innocent lives hung in the balance. Admiral Cooper faced an impossible choice. If he moved his ships to stop the Endless Hunger, the rest of the Void Hunter fleet would overwhelm his remaining forces. If he didn't, the planet would be destroyed. He chose to do what humans always did when faced with impossible choices. He did what was right, regardless of the cost. "All ships, this is Admiral Cooper. We came here to protect the innocent, and that's what we're going to do. Follow me." The U.S. Defiant and 12 other ships broke away from the main battle and charged straight at the Endless Hunger. It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. But they did it anyway, because that was what heroes did. The final battle was about to begin. The U.S. Defiant led the charge toward the Endless Hunger like a knight riding to face a dragon. Admiral Frank Cooper stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as the massive enemy ship grew larger on the screen. Behind him, 12 other human ships followed, ready to sacrifice themselves to save a planet they had never seen. "Sir, the Endless Hunger is 3 times our size," reported Lieutenant Commander Steve Walsh, the ship's tactical officer. "Their weapons are designed to destroy planets. If they get a clear shot at the Valorian homeworld, then we make sure they don't get that shot," Frank said calmly. "All ships spread out. We're going to give them too many targets to handle." The human ships scattered as they approached the enemy flagship. The Endless Hunger was a terrifying sight. It was dark and angular, covered in weapon ports and armor plating. It looked like a piece of nightmare made real. War Prince Thicknow watched the approaching human ships with contempt. 13 ships against 1, he said to his crew. These mammals are even more foolish than I thought. All weapons prepare to fire. But as the endless hunger prepared to destroy the human ships, something amazing happened. The other species that had come to help didn't retreat. Instead, they followed the human example. "This is Captain Veltar of the Centauri Republic," came the voice over the radio. "We will not let you destroy this world. All Centauri ships, attack formation." "This is Commander Zix Prime of the Andromedan Collective," said another voice. "We stand with the humans. We stand with the innocent." More and more ships joined the desperate charge. Species that had been enemies for centuries put aside their differences to fight together. The Valorians had shown them kindness, and the humans had shown them courage. Now it was time to show the galaxy what they could do when they worked together. The battle around the endless hunger was like nothing anyone had ever seen. Ships from a dozen different species fought side by side, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space. The massive enemy flagship fired back with everything it had, but there were too many targets. On the bridge of the U.E.'s Defiant, Admiral Cooper watched the impossible battle unfold. A small frigate from the Tau City colonies rammed itself into the Endless Hunger's shield generator. An Andromedan heavy cruiser sacrificed itself to take out one of the enemy's main guns. "They're all fighting like humans," Colonel Sandy Rivers said with amazement. "They're willing to die for strangers." "No," Frank said quietly. "They're fighting like heroes. We just showed them how." The battle raged for hours. The Endless Hunger was taking heavy damage, but it was still fighting. War Prince Theknau was desperate now. He could see his fleet being destroyed around him. His dreams of conquest were turning into a nightmare. "All power to the main weapon," he ordered. "If I'm going to die, I'm taking that planet with me." The Endless Hunger's planet killer weapon began to charge. It was a massive device that could crack a world in half. The Valorian homeworld was defenseless against such a weapon, but the humans had one last trick. Commodore Jake Martinez had been watching the battle from the main fleet. When he saw what was happening, he made a decision that would save billions of lives. "All ships, this is Jake Martinez. I'm going to ram the Endless Hunger. Cover me." The U.E.'s Vengeance broke away from the main battle and headed straight for the enemy flagship. Jake's ship was badly damaged, but it still had enough power for one final attack. "Sir, if you ram them, we'll all die," Lieutenant Amy Foster said. She had been with Jake from the beginning, and she was prepared to follow him to the end. "Better us than them," Jake said simply. "Amy, send a message to Earth. Tell them we did our job." But before the Vengeance could complete its suicide run, something unexpected happened. The Valorians themselves joined the battle. Captain Zeph-99 appeared on the communication screen. Behind him, Jake could see the bridge of a Valorian ship. It was different from their research vessels. This one was older, more solid, built for a different purpose. "Commander Martinez," Zeph-99 said, "you have shown us that sometimes even peaceful people must fight. We cannot let you die alone." The Valorian ship was not a warship. It was a medical vessel designed to help and heal. But the Valorians had filled it with their most advanced technology. They had turned their healing tools into weapons. "We may be pacifists," Zeph-99 continued, "but we are not helpless. This is our world, and we will defend it." The Valorian ship fired a beam of pure energy at the Endless Hunger. It was not designed to destroy, but to disable. The beam hit the enemy flagship's main weapon just as it was about to fire. The planet killer. Weapon overloaded and exploded, tearing a huge hole in the enemy ship. War Prince Theknau screamed in rage as his flagship began to break apart. "No, I will not be defeated by mammals and pacifists." But it was too late. The combined fleet of humans and aliens had won. The Endless Hunger was dying, and the rest of the Void Hunter fleet was in full retreat. Admiral Cooper watched as the enemy ships tried to escape. Most of them were destroyed by the pursuing Allied fleet. A few managed to reach hyperspace, but they were broken and scattered. The Void Hunter threat was over. All ships cease fire, Cooper ordered. The battle is won. The space around the Valorian homeworld was filled with wreckage, but it was also filled with something else. Ships from dozens of different species floated together, their crews cheering and celebrating. They had done the impossible. They had defeated the Void Hunters, but the victory had come at a cost. 23 human ships had been destroyed, including the UEC Defiant. Admiral Cooper had died when his ship rammed the Endless Hunger's engine section. Hundreds of brave men and women had given their lives to save a world they had never seen. Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the damaged, but still fighting UE's vengeance. Around him, his crew was quiet. They had won, but the price had been high. "Sir," Lieutenant Amy Foster said softly, "we're receiving a message from the Valorian homeworld." The main screen showed the surface of the planet below. Millions of Valorians had gathered in the crystal cities to watch the battle. Now they were all looking up at the human ships with expressions of gratitude and amazement. "Thank you," came the voice of the Valorian Planetary Council. "You came to help people you had never met. You fought for strangers. You gave your lives for us. We will never forget what you have done." Dr. Lisa Park had been working to save the wounded from both sides. She looked up from her medical station with tears in her eyes. "Commander, the Valorians want to share their medical technology with us. They say it's the least they can do." Jake nodded. The Valorians were known throughout the galaxy for their healing abilities. Their technology could save millions of human lives in the future. But that wasn't why they had come here. "Tell them we're honored," Jake said. "But we didn't do this for rewards. We did it because it was right." In the days that followed, something amazing happened. The story of the human fleet that had answered an alien distress call spread throughout the galaxy. Other species began to understand that humans were different. They weren't conquerors or warriors. They were protectors. The Centauri Republic offered to share their faster-than-light technology with humanity. The Andromedan Collective invited human scientists to study their advanced energy systems. Even the mysterious quantum hierarchs opened their borders to human explorers. But more importantly, the other species began to change. Inspired by the human example, they started to help each other. When pirates attacked a peaceful colony, warships from multiple species would respond. When a natural disaster struck a world, relief ships would come from across the galaxy, the Valorians built a monument on their homeworld to honor the humans who had died protecting them. It was a simple structure made of crystal and light, but it could be seen from space. On it were written the names of every human who had fallen in the battle. At the bottom of the monument were these words: "They came from far away to help strangers. They fought not for conquest, but for compassion. They showed us that the greatest power in the universe is the courage to do what is right, even when the cost is high." Jake Martinez, now promoted to Admiral, stood before the monument during the dedication ceremony. Around him were representatives from dozens of species, all united in their gratitude and respect. "We didn't set out to change the galaxy," Jake said in his speech. "We just answered a call for help, but maybe that's enough. Maybe the universe doesn't need conquerors or warriors. Maybe it just needs people who are willing to stand up for what's right." The ceremony ended with a moment of silence for all who had died. Then the alien ships began to leave, returning to their homes across the galaxy. But they carried with them something new, the knowledge that they were not alone. In a universe full of darkness, there were those who would always fight for the light. The human fleet remained in the Valorian system for another week, helping to rebuild what had been damaged. Then they too prepared to leave, but they knew they would return if needed. The galaxy was a big place, and there would always be those who needed protection. As the U's vengeance prepared to enter hyperspace, Jake looked back at the Valorian homeworld one last time. The planet was beautiful and peaceful, full of life and hope. It was worth fighting for. It was worth dying for.